there's something to be said about learning through conversation and learning through exploration of new ideas that we acquire. I think there's something to be said about that. Otherwise, when you're reading a book, it's a very linear learning process. It's I read, you tell me, I absorb, and I take that as truth. There's no opportunity to play tennis with those ideas or play ping pong with those ideas a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Because even when I was reading through it again, I was thinking, I'm like, what bits am I grabbing here that I'm seeing that you might be seeing that I'm not seeing? You know, and I think that's a really interesting concept when you're reading books as well, because there'll be certain quotes and areas of this that will speak to me more. And then there'll be bits there. And then how do we then combine those? Because I think you're right. Reading's such a linear process, but I just want to test the concept, like us two connecting our brains. What the hell? What do we read? What's like the 1 + 1 = 3 out of this book?
Oh, right. Okay. So maybe we'll be able to make connections between thoughts. Yeah. I mean, well, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to look up mind mapping, because I think hierarchies are important to be able to discover connections. And I just think our brain, the way it works is it works in hierarchies, right? And I think a lot of the times, even when I was taking notes and everything, I feel like for the last 10 years of my life, reading and taking notes, man, have been very random and all over the place. I want to learn mind mapping because I want to go, the Alchemist represents 4 different journeys. Within those 4 journeys, there are 6 lessons in 1 and then 5 lessons in 4. But I think in seeing that hierarchy, the book won't seem so confusing.
Yeah.
Because, man, I tell you what, this book, reading it now and going through it, a lot of it felt so confusing and so difficult to comprehend because you can't see the hierarchy of it. You're stuck in the granular bits, and there's so much granular, and then, I don't know. So
yeah, I think even when we're reading, I've read it, 5 to 10 times, but then reading it because I knew we were going to talk about it, it uncovered like new layers into the book as well. Wow. Like, geez, like what's going on here? But I agree. It's one of those books that's so simple in terms of it being a short read, but then you can sit there for 20 minutes on one sentence and be like, what?
Yeah.
Is that some secret that I've never heard about before? I don't know, man. I think you're right. I think that whole concept of mind mapping and categorizing and tagging is really interesting as well.
Well, that's why I'm trying to think of the process of how I want to do this every time we talk about a book. Is when I read the book, when I go through it, I want to mind map it so that instead of just regurgitating what the author's saying, we can create our own insight.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And I think that's what makes it really cool, a really cool experience for me anyway, or hopefully for you as well, or if anyone listens to it, is that you're adding to it, you're adding your own flavor and thoughts to it, as opposed to just buying a steak, cutting it up, and serving that.
Yeah,
I think we want to buy the steak, cut it up, add our flavors and our ingredients. And I think without mind mapping, it's going to be too much of grabbing the steak, cutting it up, and serving it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think
that's not exciting. That's not really interesting. Like, I don't think that's interesting. So
yeah. Well, I think that's a really interesting concept in terms of. There's probably ways we can do that even with this one, in terms of divvying it up into the different sections, right? Like if you think about his journey and how it starts, like sort of the book's pretty deep, but it's also got a relatively linear progression, and there's probably thematics that then exist within each of those different sections.
Yeah.
So that could be kind of interesting as well. Like if you looked at, call it for the mind mapping, the topics that stand out, what would be a couple for you?
Well, I think we should talk about his journey. I think we should start from the beginning. I think that's, and then just kind of move through it. And look, we don't have to mind map it now. I'm just saying it's something that has come to my mind in that with it, it can be epic. Without it, it's regurgitation.
I like it. I think
without insight. Yeah.
I think the mind mapping component's cool.
Yeah, I think insight would be cool. And it's something where I see, and I'm trying to see into the future, right? I see being able to collaborate on a doc, which is the mind map, and you doing it a certain color, I do it a certain color. And by spending, say, once we finish reading a book, we spend a couple of hours on the mind map, that then becomes the framework and the agenda for the conversation. I think that will be super powerful. And what that will do for us is, I think it will enhance the learning process.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a cool concept.
Yeah, cool. there was actually a quote in here that I think relates to this. It's about teaching. Where is it? See, this is the thing. This is the problem. There's too many good quotes in this.
Yeah.
There's too many good quotes. Yeah. Anyway, we'll go through it one at a time because I'm not going to be able to find key ones. Oh, here it is.
You want me to record a copy as well, dude?
Yeah, feel free to record it. Yeah, let's do it.
Like, I don't know what view you've got. I'll record it in the alternative.
Okay, I think I've got it in speaker view.
Okay, cool.
Oh, no, so I've got it in gallery view. Oh,
you've got it in gallery?
Yeah.
Cool, well, I'll record it in speaker.
Okay.
Let's get the settings.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think the mind mapping component's really, really cool. Like, if we had a template for each book that we do.
Cool would that be?
Yeah, and then you combine it and having it in the red and the green and then combining those. It really becomes like a graphical brainstorm.
Yeah.
And one book can create.
And imagine every time we do this, we're leaving for our kids the spark that hopefully lights the fire for them to go and read the book. Yeah, I feel that every generation that we move forward now, there's this lack of desire for knowledge and lack of desire for learning because knowledge is at their fingertips.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you know you can search anything, your desire to search becomes less.
Well, I think the real special part about this that I was thinking about as well earlier was your ability to storytell and then combine your own personal stories with the books as well will add such an extra flavor to this.
Because, and I hope to evoke stories from you too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. But like that's a cool concept as well, right? Because you think about reading, it's such a passive action. And we all read books and we know that there's something amazing happening in that book. But then how do you then connect it to the real world? Like say if I look at, when I reread this now, given that I think the first time I read it was 4 or 5 years ago, I'm now seeing that shit, there's stuff that happened in this book that inspired me back then that I've then acted on and tested out in different areas of life. And that component of linking it into, all right, how do you make that advice actionable? That's me being a red, that side of it is really interesting because...
but you see, in you saying that, you just made me realize, like I read this book when I was a teenager and I forgot that I read this book. Yeah. And the reason why I connected with, like the reason why towards the end of the book when, the boy he has to turn into wind to save his life. The reason why that connected to me was because I wished I could turn into wind to escape bullies.
Yeah, wow.
That's the crazy thing is, you just made me realize that because I never thought about why do I remember that. I just thought it was so weird that that's what made me go, crap, I actually read this book before. So yeah, that was probably why. Yeah, that's interesting. Anyway, yeah.
No, I think that stuff becomes really interesting with this concept as well. Because I agree. And even, we've read so many books over our time. Yeah. They all have an impact in a different way, but I've been really interested in sort of tracking that, being like, oh, which lesson was it, whether it was from you or from a book that happened 4 or 5 years ago that is now that seed's turned into a plant or whatever it was. Yeah, like you talk about this, like that concept about the wind.
Yeah.
That stands out for this. And who knows what role that played in maybe pursuing something. Or I remember him talking about, following your personal legend probably in like 2014. And I always think back, I'm like, how much does that link to pursuing entrepreneurship or starting a business or doing something creative? I wonder where that sits and exists within it.
Well, the other thing before we dive into this as well, I think to be conscious of is I'm picturing doing this for my kids.
Yeah, that's cool.
Because to me, whether this becomes successful or not in terms of the public eye or getting viewership or whatever, it's pretty irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
I think the core things I wrote in the doc I shared with you is that I want to do this because it's an opportunity for me to sit down with friends, discuss books, grow together, and allow our minds to be challenged by each other's truths as opposed to just nonchalantly accepting everything that comes our way and thinking that our shit doesn't smell. I think personally there's a great nourishment factor, but I think beyond that, if you look at the legacy component, it's the people that you get to help who listen to this, who want to listen to this. But more than that, from a personal point of view, let's talk about it as if our kids will listen to this one day.
Yeah,
and
cool. I like
if
that.
we need to explain something, let's explain it with a bit more clarity as opposed to just saying, oh, this or that. I think explain it from the point of view that our kids don't know us at the age of, our mid-30s. They don't really fully know us. As children right now, they don't fully know us. And this is an opportunity for them to almost have a time capsule and look back and go, wow, this was the coronavirus year.
Yeah, this was COVID.
Yeah,
why are you on Zoom? Why aren't you guys together doing this?
Yeah. So that's good. Well, look, I think
that's cool.
I think The Alchemist is an incredible story of a journey of a boy who went on to discover that everyone has a goal, everyone has a purpose, or as the book calls it, a personal legend. Everyone has to pursue that. And it's kind of his journey through his life and the challenges and the obstacles that come about while he's in pursuit of this personal legend, this goal of his, which came to him in a dream. And it's just, that's kind of, I think that's the overall structure. And he meets different characters along the way that teaches him different lessons, good characters, bad characters. But the overall book is really about this one boy pursuing his dream.
Yeah.
Would you agree? Do you think there's anything there that is missing from that kind of overarching summary?
No, I think you've nailed it. Like that hits it on the head, right? If you look at the hero's journey and the arc, that's what really stands out for me in this one. And I think that whole concept of him, wanting to adventure, to find his treasure, to go on that quest. You've nailed it with that summary for sure.
Well, I'll start then. The first thing that really stood out to me was when Santiago, the main character, he's looking after his sheep. And the reason he wanted to look after sheep and become a shepherd was because he wanted to travel. He loved the idea of traveling and being kind of a nomad and being free. And then he had the realization that his sheep weren't helping him become a better person, that his sheep were so easily satisfied by, if you just give them food and water every day, they're happy.
Yeah.
They're in a state of contentment. And he was kind of afraid of becoming a sheep.
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts on that?
On the sheep? I think so. I think there's two components with the sheep that stands out, because the sheep represent security and certainty. But remember, even in the beginning, how his dad wanted him to be a priest, right? So the sheep also, it's got that paradox where the sheep are kind of like, that was his version of escaping and breaking his mold.
Yeah.
Versus it's also then became kind of his regular day-to-day and his obligation, right? He had to look after the sheep, feed them, make sure that they're protected. He couldn't lose it, that this value. But
in a way, the sheep was he freed himself of that default path his dad created for him. And the sheep at one point was actually like a dream.
Yeah, it was a dream.
Yeah.
But I never thought about how you saw it, that the sheep actually symbolizes him actually becoming a sheep as well, which is equally true. Because
I skipped the step. I glossed over the fact that, his dad did have a predetermined path for him.
Yeah.
But that's crazy. That means at one point the sheep was a dream, but then it no longer was a dream. I think that speaks to one of the core lessons in this book, is that your personal legend continues to evolve. It's never the same thing. And the book has this consistent encouragement of you should continue to pursue your personal legend and reach it, because then it evolves and then it will take you on a different journey. So that's kind of, you don't realize that reading the book at the start, but in talking about it now, it makes sense. Is that, that's interesting.
And that bit really when I was reading that bit, rereading it for this, it reminded me of you when you share the story of accounting to magic to then speaking. You know, like that whole journey of like, did magic become the sheep? You know, and does it symbolize that because you broke out of the traditional set?
Well, metaphorically, what this means is that no matter what goal you're pursuing, that goal will eventually become the sheep. It eventually will be because again, anything that you spend too long doing, and I think for me, the big thing that I've realized is that the moment I try to monetize something and the moment I try to commercialize something with such intensity, I speed up the speed at which it becomes sheep.
Yep. Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like that's
100%.
That's for me. I've learned that. That's why, you know, when we're doing this and I want to do this more seriously moving forward, I don't really want to intensely try to focus on how to monetize it. I think
now the ad for the Alchemist comes in. It's like, now we're going to Paulo Coelho here.
All the hotels you should stay at.
No.
But that's an interesting insight, right?
Yeah.
Is that I love that line? Is that everything eventually becomes sheep? And then it's kind of it's kind of like another alternate word for shit. But I think it always gradually becomes that way if you don't keep evolving, if you don't allow your personal legend to grow and to develop and to evolve.
Yeah, 100%. I think you've hit that on the head. You speak to everyone that ends up pursuing even if you are lucky enough to pursue your passion. Yeah. It's crazy once it becomes a job. Yeah. How quickly that doesn't have that purity or the creative expression that it does at the start when you're kind of learning it and call it commercialized. Or I think as soon as it's got some obligation, right? Like as soon as he's got a flock of sheep that are his livelihood, that he's got to look after, it changes the flavor of what the sheep represent. But then, you know, it's that yin and yang of it.
And I think there's another layer here. I think another layer here is that when you have escaped a job that you don't like into a job that you love, and then you discover that you no longer really love it because of whatever reason, because maybe you try to commercialize it too much, maybe because you're doing too much of it and it's become monotonous after a certain time. Then there's also a component where because you're already doing what you love, and if other people are perceiving that you're doing what you love, you're afraid to complain because you feel like a bit of a jerk. And I definitely can feel that. It's like, I know so many people who want to become a keynote speaker and speaking. And then anytime I want to say that, you know, I don't want to do it anymore. I feel like I no longer feel drawn to it. I no longer feel like I love it. It's really hard to say that out loud because I know so many people want it.
Yeah.
So I think you've got to be really careful about just those external factors.
100%.
And I don't know if this is the right time to bring it in, but there's that quote where in the book it says, everyone seems to have a clear idea of how other people should lead their lives, but none about his or her own.
Yeah.
But that's so true. We do it. I do it. Yeah. I try to give advice all the time. And I think the more we try to give other people advice, the less time we're spending on trying to gain clarity. It's hard to describe. I think when we're trying to give other people advice, it means that we're putting value on the external as opposed to the internal. We're trying to change the outside world around us to have an internal change within us. Right? And I think the sooner we realize, and there's another quote from the book that says this, the sooner we realize that we have no control of the external, the only control we have is the internal. And as you change the internal, it has an impact on the external.
Yep.
So again, I just think the whole idea of not liking where you are, it's like if a lawyer is in their job that doesn't like their job, they're afraid to say it to the people around them because they're afraid of what other people might think who look up to being a lawyer. I think you just have to learn to be more truthful to yourself. And
yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with the internal versus the external component there. Because if you're giving somebody advice, but they're only looking at the external, but the internal's not ready, it can't work. They're mutually exclusive, right? Like if you're sitting there and you're speaking to a potential speaker who's only done one keynote but wants to become you. You can give them all the advice in the world, but it's not ready yet. Internally, they haven't built all the muscles or they call it the capital or the effort, right? And the book hits on this so well. You know, like when you look at the Englishman that's on his journey, like he's read it all, he's studied it all, but
give context for the Englishman. You're going to give context for the Englishman, right?
All right, so
the Englishman is
this is where you come in with the context. I'm going straight to the point.
Damn it, Ali, give us some context here.
So the Englishman's obviously on the journey, and maybe we've skipped a little bit ahead throughout the book here. But
I think a great way to be able to do this is A, you can talk about different characters. B, we can talk about different quotes. C, we can talk about different stories. And I think for now, let's just give ourselves the freedom of whatever.
You skip around. So, so I'll provide context of the Englishman. So as the boy goes on search for his treasure and his personal legend, he comes across the Englishman, which he shares the ride through the desert with. And the Englishman's actually on the search to find alchemy, which is turning essentially lead or whatever it is into gold, because he's studied about it, he's learnt about it, he's read all these books, he knows every single thing about it. And I think the search tells him that you have to go to Egypt, you have to go to the desert, find the alchemist, and he'll show you the secrets. And then when he eventually does get to the alchemist, the alchemist pretty much simply tells him, all right, go try it. And that's it. That's the end of that's the end of the lesson. So he's like, all right, so we finally, after years and years of prepping for this moment, thinking that it's going to be handed on a plate. This is the way I read it anyway. He's essentially just been told, well, you need to go and try it. You know? And he's like, damn, all right. But he starts. And that's nearly his level of that journey. But I think it goes back to that component, like the internal isn't there, the repetitions aren't there, the actions haven't been taken, and it relates.
And I think what that speaks to is it speaks to the fact that action is more heavily weighted than just theory.
Yeah.
It's like an ounce of action is worth more than an ounce of theory. And I think through that Englishman's journey, I mean, one of the core concepts that Santiago, the main character, talks about every time he talks about the Englishman is that he's always reading.
Yeah.
He's always reading his books. He's always buried his head in his books. And one of the vivid scenes I remember from reading it and listening to it is that, you know, no matter what was going on around in the desert, the beauties of the desert, the Englishman was just buried in the book, and it seemed as if the world around him didn't exist.
Yeah.
So I think that was such a great metaphor for how much he valued theory.
Yeah. And do you remember the flip side of that is Santiago? He's got the book, but he can never get started. But he's like listening to the world and trying to take it all in. But it's an interesting, paradox on it. On the other side of how they're both kind of on the same journey. One's doing it through the collection of knowledge, and then the other one's kind of just like, oh, I'm just going to go with the flow, take it all in, try a few things. It's like action versus knowledge, and maybe the molding of it. I don't know. But
it's the thing where too much of anything is bad, right? It's like every time we chat about anything, we always come back to one thing, and we always say it's the middle.
It's the middle. It's the paradox.
It's the middle. It's always the middle.
It's never black and white.
Is it action or is it theory? And it's kind of, well, why can't it be both? Yeah. And I think it's just really about ensuring that it's like a seesaw, right? It's just don't let it all be action, mindless action. You've got to make sure there's theory to balance it out. And it's just life is this consistent balance of having enough theory so that the actions we take are educated actions, not just kind of mindless without any kind of strategy whatsoever, right?
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept. I forgot that Santiago represented the opposite of that in the desert. He just couldn't start reading. Yeah.
So maybe let's go back, right? So we spoke about the sheep. I think there's something really interesting that happens when he goes to the baker because he's on the search to go revisit the baker's daughter, right? And he's got his sheep in tow, and then he goes to like the mystic, the woman that tells him about the dream that he has, and then he meets the old man. Like, what does that represent to you?
Well, in the book, they talk about this whole thing of omens. And omens are signs in life that present themselves to us. And if we follow those signs, those signs will lead us towards our purpose and our personal legend. And to me, those people, recommend, they represent omens.
Yeah.
There are omens along the way. It's like the dream was an omen. And, well, what do you think omens are? I mean, I had that question here.
Yeah.
Like, what is an omen to you?
To me, it's a sign and a signal.
Right.
That's intuitive nearly and not explicit.
And it's different for everyone, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be unique to the individual because you can essentially find a sign in anything, right? If you look hard enough. So it doesn't give it to you on a plate. It doesn't take the action for you, but it nearly points you in the spot. It's like that gut feel or subconscious feeling that draws you towards something.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like you said. But see, so to me, I see omens as people that come into my life. Right. I see it as I see it as it's how some people say, oh,
yeah,
the God above or whatever, give me a sign, and then something happens.
Yeah.
But to me, I see omens in terms of people. In terms of the people that walk into my life that actually get my attention, and then I feel connected to them. There's lots of people that come and go through my life that I don't feel connected with, and then to me, that's not an omen. But to me, it's like, for example, you, one of the people get into my life. I see it as, oh, that's like a sign.
Yeah.
That this connection, that's the baker that I will meet. That's the fortune teller that I will meet. That will lead me towards something greater. That will get me closer to my personal legend.
100%.
That's why I asked you, because for me, it's kind of people are the omens in my life.
Yeah, see, to me, it's both. It's people, but it can also be events. It can be feelings. It can be
the coronavirus.
Yeah, wide variety of
that's a global
of events that take place. Because I think you're right. I think the people are usually the biggest ones. If I look at the biggest omens, if I was going to define it like that, I'd have to say it's people, right? But then it can also be like, there can be an omen in like missing a flight and then something happening and changing the path, or coronavirus happening and changing the path, or a book falling on your foot, and changing your reading it. Whatever that is, that can also be then. To me, it's like those mysterious things that kind of happen that you can't logically really explain, but have some sort of real impact on what takes place.
Because I'm part magician, to me, I also am very wary of superstition.
That's hilarious.
And because I'm Asian too, man, in the Asian culture, it's bloody filled with superstitions. And I've seen omens or superstitions, maybe the negative version of that. I've seen superstition ruin lives.
Yeah.
I've seen it cause people to financially put themselves into completely screwed up situations because I now have to buy this stone that costs $15,000, put it in front of my house, and that's going to bring me wealth. Yeah. You just lost wealth because you bought that stone, right? So to me, that's why when I see people as omens, but to me, I'm afraid, I think, to see the more granular things that can happen in life as omens, because my life growing up, to me, those were superstitions.
But
you know what I mean?
Is there a difference between gimmick and those that are like internally driven? Because I agree, right? Like if I go to a fortune teller, I'm probably not going to look at that as an omen. I'm like, you're trying to get cash off me because this is your job. And maybe there is
some people will see it. Yeah.
Because I'm so logical. To me, it's nearly the flip side, because I'm like the opposite of superstitious. That I like that there is some of that magic nearly, it's nearly the opposite side of how you are with it. Whereas you're like, I've seen so much of it going that other way. With me being that logical side, I'm like, I'm so much at this camp. I need to.
You need some superstition in your life.
I need some superstition in my life. Otherwise, it's going to be way too black and white.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a thing. There's something deeply embedded there in that. It can, what's the difference between an omen and a superstition potentially, right? And this is kind of our naive version of this, and.
Yeah.
But I feel that it's an omen when you give a sign, a signal, a person, a random event, a coincidence, when you give it meaning. When you internally give it meaning without too much external influence, then true, that can be an omen for you. But when you're allowing cultural lessons that tie itself to an action. You know, like, oh, make sure, you know, like feng shui, right? Some people who believe in feng shui, like, again, I don't know everything. It might be real. But to me, I kind of look at it and go, oh, I don't know. Having where your door's positioned, I don't know. Because these are meanings that a culture has assigned to it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think an omen in its most purest form is something happens, and because of that something happening, because of the way it happened and the way the coincidental moment happened, it just formulated an internal meaning.
Yeah.
You know,
so I think you bang on. Because
internal versus external. Yeah.
Yeah, it becomes, I think superstitions become dangerous, and even, you know, like some sort of cultural, religious beliefs become dangerous when they're then used as the blame post.
Yeah.
You know, for things not taking place. It's like, oh, I didn't tie my shoes up that exact way. That's why I lost the game. Or my door wasn't in the right spot. That's why my family got sick. You know, I think that's where it can nearly be negative, you know, or I only got this job because I rolled the dice the same way 3 times, you know, like that's where it's kind of like, all right, maybe there's, when
I think
add too much credit or too much blame to the event, then it can become pretty dangerous, right? Because then you're going to give all your money over and you might get stitched up some way, and then you become jaded at that person or the world or whatever it is. I think that's where it can become really dangerous.
But, me too. But I mean, back to what you originally said, right? So to me, the baker or the fortune teller, they represented people that were omens in a sense that they were the people that were going to help give him the right directions. They were kind of like the beacons. They were like, if you come to me, it's like when you play a game, if you go to this person with an exclamation mark on top of their head, they're going to give you the directions to complete the quest.
Yeah.
So to me, that's how I saw them. And I mean, the fortune teller character was super interesting. You know, it's like she represents that person that usually feeds you nonsense. Yeah. She, you know, he went to her going, hey, I've got this dream that I've had that I was going to find my treasure in the pyramids, because that's the dream that came to Santiago, the main character. That I got this dream that my treasure's in the pyramids, but I don't know, I don't know how to get there. I don't know what it means. And then she kind of helped him realize that the only thing she said to him, in fact, this is, if I'm remembering correctly, is she said, you just have to go.
Do you remember in it as well where she's like, I want 10%?
Yeah. Great entrepreneur. She's a great entrepreneur. Amazing.
But the old man did the same thing. He's like, I think one was front-ended. One was like, I want 10% off the treasure when you get it. And the other one was, I want 10% of your sheep.
Yeah, the king said, because he met the fortune teller, then he met the king.
Yeah.
So the fortune teller said, I want 10% of the treasure that you find.
Yeah.
And the king said, I want 10% of the treasure that you currently have.
That's right.
So it teaches you 2 lessons there. Well, there is. I think it teaches you 2 lessons, right? It teaches you the lesson of, it's kind of like angel investors versus banks. Like an angel investor will say, look, I'll give you money now, but I want a percentage of what you have later.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give you something now. She gave the advice now for 10% of the rewards later. That's kind of like a VC, right? A venture capitalist. Whereas a bank is, I want a deposit now before I'll give you a loan.
Yeah, bang on.
So to me, it's just learning that quick lesson of, there'll be people who believe in your vision and your goal. And then there are people who will only look at who you are and what you are right now. So there's 2 kinds of people. There's people who trust in your ability, and then there's people who trust in your vision.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. And the other, to add to that element as well, is how interesting is it with his mindset? Like, he's gone and found these 2 people that trust in the ability and in the vision.
Yeah.
But his level of skepticism, right? Like, if you look at how that whole exchange happens, it's like, just go find the treasure. It's like really simple advice. Or it's this. But he's already agreed to pay so significantly for that. And on one hand, it's like, well, that was so crap and I've just been stitched up again. But on the other hand, it also drives him closer towards moving forward. And I think to me, that really stood out, because so many people that I know, myself included, when we sit there and we weigh up some sort of educational type of experience or whatever it is, it's like, oh no, I don't know if I want to take the risk to go and learn that because I don't know whether I'm going to get a return on it. Whereas on the flip side, it's like I've never gone and done anything like educational that I've gone and regretted and haven't found at least something, because it's internally driven. You can turn any conversation into an educational experience. And I think there was something really interesting in that component of it. Like, even if you go through the book, he's like, oh yeah, this old man's crazy. You know, he has no idea what he's talking about. This old woman that's told me this is nuts, you know, like she's just taken 10% of my treasure and barely given me anything to go with. But still kind of nudges him forward. And
well, I think that there's one thing that nudges. Well, I remember him kind of fighting in his own head about this. And I won't remember the quote exactly, but it's like someone taught him, and I don't remember who. This is how good of a review we're doing. But someone said to him, if you stop listening to your heart's going to stop talking to you.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And I think he kept falling back to that. And I think it was the king that said that. Yeah. And maybe it wasn't the heart, but the king said, if you stop listening to the omens, one day the omens will stop revealing themselves to you. Yeah. And then that's when you truly suffer and you live that life of monotony and kind of like, oh crap, life is crap. And I think that was the baker, wasn't it? The baker.
It happens in a couple of bits, but I know that there's a passage later on in it where it's either the alchemist or the baker or the king, one of the characters.
It was one of the
pretty
characters
much says
in the
that
book.
If you don't go find your treasure, in 1 year's time, you'll be here. You know, you'll be happy with your sheep. You'll be fine. It'll be all right. In 2 years' time, it'll get a little bit quieter again and you'll get into the zone. In 3 years' time, you'll probably start regretting and resenting that what happens. I'm probably butchering that, but it goes through that concept of essentially, you know, reflecting that complacency and comfort nearly that we all sort of get into, where we might have a dream or we might have an ambition that we want to explore, but sometimes it's just easier just to do what you're doing and to enjoy the fruits of your labor and to go down. That's what I got out of that passage. I'm not sure if it was the same for you.
Yeah, well, that's why I think it was the baker. That's why the baker was living this very monotonous life and seemed to be a person who no longer was pursuing a personal legend, no longer was pursuing their purpose. And he had that moment. I remember this when he was thinking to himself, should I go and try to, you know, reawaken that person's desire? Should I? And then he decided in the end not to.
Not going to.
And I think, and I said this on a Facebook Live the other day, that's how I felt too, is that, you know, I meet so many people in a year. Before the coronavirus happened, I'd speak at 80 conferences a year. You know, you meet thousands of people every year. And it's so easy to see those people who are no longer pursuing their personal legend. It's so easy to be able to, and you feel it when you talk to them.
Yeah.
People who are pursuing something, even if they don't know what it is, that they're still trying to discover it, there's a certain energy that comes from them. And then there's a certain type of person that you meet as well where you don't feel any of that. And to me, that is someone that kind of represents that baker archetype, who they've settled. And that, you know, I'm no longer pursuing it. And I don't see omens anymore. I don't see opportunity anymore. I don't see signs for me to follow anymore. And that's when I think people find themselves in a rut. Because the whole idea of this book is, if you don't have a personal legend, you're not living, right? It's kind of, it's good. Yeah, the importance of the personal legend is really interesting. Yeah.
Well, that's a really interesting concept, because you see so many people in that space, and, you know, like, your core thing that you do is educate and inspire people and, you know, essentially get them to take action. Do you think everyone does have a personal legend, or are some people just meant to never pursue it? Like, what's your feelings on that? Because to me, it speaks so strongly, this book, that, like, shit, if you're not doing it, are you living? I'm kind of more in that camp, similar with you. It's like this whole, I really resonate with the book, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs and, you know, athletes and people like Oprah and Will Smith probably resonate with this book, because it's about pursuing something that's unrealistic for a lot of people. But I wonder, does that then resonate to everyone? And
But again, I think that comes back to this. I think it just comes back to, again, is that desire to almost talk about other people's journey. It's like, let me find this quote. I want to find it. And the way I'm doing this is like, while I was listening to it and reading, I just kind of wrote down everything that stood out to me. Yeah. So I've got to also think about, and we spoke about this earlier, is I want to create a mind map for this. Yeah. So that, again, it's easier for me to find information, because right now it's just a list of quotes.
Yeah.
Whereas I know if I had a mind map, I would be able to find this so much faster. So there is a quote that I want to bring up, though.
Yeah, I'm just looking at mine here as well. There's so many in this book. It's incredible. Like, there's just lessons and gold nuggets pretty much every few sentences. You could highlight.
It's crazy.
The entire book.
That's why it's taken me so long to even look through this. It's insane how many there are. But again, it was along the lines of, yeah, anyone who anyone who interferes with the destiny of another will never discover his own. So anyone who interferes with the destiny of another will never discover his own. And to me is that, again, we tend to, I think by nature, we're all very judgmental. It's why everyone has an opinion. It's like when you wanted to leave your kind of secure job with Monash University and pursue this hobby of a golf business, I'm sure lots of people had opinions about that.
Yeah.
And I think everyone does have a personal legend, is that we just spend too much of our time interfering with other people's personal legends, which causes us gradually to no longer look for the omens in our lives or the signals to be able to further the progress of us achieving our own personal legends, which then results in people seeming like they don't have a personal legend. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that's where the danger lies. The danger lies in being too obsessed with how other people are living, not obsessed enough about your own personal legend, and therefore creating the illusion at times that you don't have one.
Yeah.
And that's the people I see with no energy there. It's maybe they're spending too much of their own time telling other people what not to do.
But the image that came to mind then was like a volcano. It's like lying there dormant, but can't erupt because it's been suppressed, either by doubt, fear, other people, self-belief, whatever it is. And I think that's maybe the other component. It's like it nearly needs to be unleashed, right? Like, because even if you look at this story, the whole concept is that even when you go and then pursue it, at every single point of pursuing it, there's going to be some roadblock that's going to happen. I think that's the other thing that really resonated, which is seems like essentially a universal law that as soon as you try to do something new or change it, it's either going to be something telling you can't do it, failing, Zoom not working, whatever it is. There's going to be something there, but that real underlying lesson of if you truly are pursuing it, and maybe everyone is in their own way, is that they'll have that different threshold of being able to then overcome the hurdles to then also continue to.
Well, everyone is pursuing their personal legend at a different rate of progression.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's such a slow rate of progression, it almost seems like it's stagnant. And then for some people, it's actually going backwards. They're moving further and further away from the personal legend. And I think in talking about it for the last 10 minutes, I am more on the side of that everyone does have a personal legend.
Yeah.
Not necessarily saying it to be inspirational or anything, but more so just that believing that is what gives me meaning in this life.
Yeah.
Believing in that is what's going to make me an effective teacher and an effective person in society. If I adopt the belief that, there are some people who don't have a destiny, and which there's a direct quote to this, and that the quote here says, to realize your own destiny is a person's only obligation. That is a freaking huge statement for the book to make, because it's saying that for you to achieve your dreams is your only obligation in this life.
Yeah.
And I think some people who might be hearing this, is that they're thinking, well, no, I've got obligations like my kids, my wife, my community, my country. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100% agree. And that's been
like,
something.
Do you agree that the only obligation each of us has is our own dreams and destiny?
Yeah, like that component for me, even since I was a kid, has just really stood out. Is that I think for us to be the best versions of ourselves for other people, I fundamentally believe we have to be the best versions of ourselves for ourselves. Yeah. And I think that, but there are so many risks and like the price to pay to then find that is huge. And you can nearly lose everything on that journey as well to then pursue that, if that makes sense. So if I look at, my journey, like for me to pursue, call it my sort of personal legend, I've had to probably negatively impact a lot of people along the way for that to happen. But then it's always been in on the flip side is that hopefully in that pursuit, at some point it will balance, or it does balance along the way for those that are aligned with it, that then also benefit from it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But I think in viewing that we had to negatively impact people puts a negative spin on it, right? And it may truly actually have been negative. But I want to explore that because I think that's really interesting, right? Because as long as you think it's negative, you're going to resist doing it, especially if you're trying to be a good person, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I feel like, again, if I take the example for me in my life, I've had removed friends from my life for me to be on the journey that I'm on. And to me, the removal of friendships and the ending of friendships, I now look back at it in hindsight, is that we saved each other from stopping one another, from achieving our own personal legends.
Yeah.
That the ending of that friendship was a positive for all of us. And it was a net positive reaction for the entire environment.
Yeah.
So in a sense, the action itself may have been perceived as being bad, but the outcome of it, to me, is a net positive.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a good call. Yeah, I think I think there's so much truth in that. Because this is the other side as well. Maybe there is no negative to pursuing your personal legend. Because say if you go by the book, right, and if that's your only obligation, do we maybe put too much weight on positive and negative? Like it's more about just
what is just is. Yeah.
Yeah, it just is what it is, right? Like, because what is negative or positive? How do you subjectively do that?
It's so subjective. It's so subjective because one person will view something as positive and someone will view it as a negative. It's like tasting food, man.
Yeah.
It's like someone likes durians and some people think it smells like dirty socks. I love it.
It's so good. But you're right, because that's the thing as well. I think this happens in relationships a lot, where, in marriages and in couples, where you got to compromise for it to work. But I think in some relationships, there's nearly an over compromisation where the individuals lose themselves, and that also has a negative impact. So it'll be like, to save my marriage, I had to completely change who I was to do these things, and I couldn't be myself, which satisfied some things in the short term, but it might not fix everything in the long term. Whereas somebody else will go the other way and be like, all right, for me to be the best person I could in my marriage, I had to just completely go nuts, and I had to travel to Mexico for 19 months, and then I came back, and it might be. And again, going back to the whole concept of going back to the middle, but at what, like, say the personal legend component, and this is the real interesting component thing in my head, is like, how far do you go in your pursuit of the personal legend?
The book has a great example.
Yeah.
The book, Santiago meets Fatima, right?
Yeah.
Who is this love of his life that he met in the middle of the desert as he was on his journey to try to find his personal legend of the treasures in the pyramids. And on his journey, they stopped at an oasis and he met this beautiful girl named Fatima. And he just fell madly in love with her. He was at this oasis for months because there was a war going on between tribes and they had to stay in this oasis because the oasis was this neutral zone. And he would wait every day at this kind of river or lake or whatever it was in the desert, every day for her to just speak to her for 15 minutes. And he just fell madly in love with her. And the interaction was very simple in that he thought, you know what? I think I've already discovered the biggest treasure of my life, which is love.
Yeah.
And it talks through, oh, love is everything. Maybe I should sacrifice my personal legend and give it up. And he actually proposed to Fatima, saying that I'll give this up and I'll stay here and I'll love you and I'll be with you. And then she said the most beautiful thing to him. And again, this is terrible paraphrasing. but she says something like, true love never keeps someone from their personal legend.
Yeah.
If it keeps you from your personal legend, it's not true love.
Bang on. That's cool.
And she painted this picture for him. She says, sure, we can get married. You can give up your personal legend. And you're a capable person. You'll be in this oasis. You'll become one of the leaders here. And one day you'll sit here and you'll regret. You regret not of having pursued that personal legend of yours.
Yeah.
And I just went, holy crap. Is this realistic? Like what person would say that? And then so I reflected on my own wife, Pei Wen. And I went, wow, Pei Wen allowed me to pursue my personal legend. And even in me saying that, I used the word allow, right?
Yeah.
Really, we shouldn't be using that because it's our own right.
Yeah.
And I reflected on Chantel. I reflected on your wife as well. I'm like, well, you're pursuing your personal legend. But I know so many people who their partners disagree with them pursuing their personal legend.
Mm.
And the primary reason for that generally is because of financial stability.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is such a fairy tale. And I do feel like we're both living a little bit of a fairy tale in that sense because we have partners who really encourage us to pursue our dreams. But I don't think this is the reality for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well.
But that's such a harsh statement. It's such a harsh statement. It's such a harsh statement in saying that if someone doesn't allow you to pursue your dreams, it's not true love.
Yeah,
like that is harsh, man. That is harsh, right?
But did you genuinely ask for permission?
Yeah, no, I didn't. Yeah,
like because I think there's a difference between being allowed and then support, right?
Yeah, that's true. I kind of jumped off the cliff and it was like, help me!
Hey, we're jumping. Yeah, it's like
hey, we're jumping. Help me! Oh my God, did you bring rope? And thank goodness you brought rope. But you're right. That's a good point.
Because I know for a fact if I was going to Chantel just with the proposal of, here's what I'm thinking. As it is, all the details. Are you on board?
But look, I mean, right. But I just got a terrible feeling while we were laughing, right? And the terrible feeling I got was in us pursuing our personal legend.
Yeah.
Have we denied our partners in pursuing theirs, right? Because the resources that it takes to be able to pursue a personal legend is really overwhelming.
Mm. Yeah.
Which brings us back to the question, right? Does everyone have a personal legend? And have we been greedy in pursuing our own personal legend to the point where we've used up so much of the resources that our partners have not been able to pursue their personal legend? I'd love to hear your perspective of this and then I can share mine as well.
Yeah, like it's a huge question. It goes back to what I was saying before, right? Like in that pursuit, what are the costs that then happen? But then on the flip side though as well, like there's two sides of the personal legend as well in my head. One is there's the personal legend of just being the best version of who you are, you know, and then there's the other version, which is in the pursuit of the quest, right? So I think we're talking really about two different things because if I'm looking at it from, say, Chantel's perspective, maybe there's been sacrifices in pursuing the quest, but just seeing her as an individual, I'd say that pursuing the personal legend of who she had to be and who she had to become, I would say that's ticked off, and then it goes back to alignment and values and all those things. But like, I would say that it's there. It doesn't feel like there's a conflict, or resentment or regret, and maybe I'll have to get her on the show to ask him. It's really hard
I regret everything.
Yeah,
I regret
like
everything.
we're just like, yeah, Pei Wen loves it. It's been the best thing that's ever happened because she's not in the room right now. It might be a complete concept.
Well, before you move on from that, I think the journey of becoming the best we can be, I think, is a part of the journey of, like, it's the requirement that is involved in you achieving your personal legend, in you achieving your purpose. It's like, it's not, I don't think it's two separate things. I think it's a part of the journey. The people you meet, the choices you make you a better person, hopefully, so that you become the right person to be able to see the right signals, to be able to move towards the right direction, to get the right progress. So I think all of that is a part of it.
Yeah.
What I'm speaking to is, we are pursuing our personal legends with such intensity. And in talking about this, is making me worry, trying to, have some self-awareness here for the both of us, is that, what about the personal legend of those we care about? And then let's see, but this comes back again, right? The book is saying, and not that the book is all right, but what the book is saying, and it's why we're discussing it, is that in you pursuing your personal legend, in you becoming better, as human beings, we are connected to everything in our environment. You are connected, believe it or not, to your car. You're connected to your dog. And as you become better, your car operates better because you're looking after it better. Your dog becomes better because you groom them more. You look after them. You feed them better food. As you become better, we make our partners better. And as they become better, they make us better. So if pursuing our personal legend makes us better, then surely there's no negative, right? I mean, but what I'm talking about, here is the resource split.
Yeah.
So much of the resources that we took and we have as a couple has gone to me pursuing what I'm doing. I don't know, there's some guilt here, I don't know.
Yeah, well, the way that I would sort of complete that bit is that, again, I don't think, and we love our wives, we love our partners, but if you go back to the book as well, we could provide, like, potentially an environment or a support mechanism or be there for our loved ones, but I don't think any individual can impact someone's personal legend.
Okay.
Right? So if you go back to the book, like, say if Pei Wen or Chantal have a personal legend that they need to fulfill, it's kind of up to them to also fulfill that. Right? Like,
and we're not that powerful that we can stop them from pursuing their personal legends.
We could. So we might be that block, or we might be the supporter. We could be that. We could potentially be that voice that maybe pushes them back a little bit, or pushes them. But at the end of the day, ultimately, if there's a legend there to be pursued, that individual has to be responsible for pursuing it. That's the number one thing that I get
powerful
from the book. Right? Is that
like
you go to the glassmaker. He spends a year with the crystal merchant.
Yeah, well, just to give context, before he was about to embark on his massive journey through the desert, he had a thief that stole all of his money, and then he had to go work at this crystal merchant shop to make money to go on the journey through the desert. Go on.
So he spends like a year there to pretty much recoup and regroup, because his whole ambition is, all right, well, I'll just earn enough money, I'll make it back home, I'll go buy back my sheep, and that was the life that was meant for me. But the thing that stands out there is, like, the crystal merchant speaking about, well, I think he had the dream of going on a pilgrimage, and he was kind of happy in being in the safe zone of the environment that he had created. He didn't actually want to fulfill his dream, and I think that's a really interesting concept as well, because I think that there's no one size fits all here. Like, you can be you can be content is the word that I'm probably looking for. Like every in the book, one of the real key components there is that there is no defined level of personal legend. Like, for some people, their personal legend might be playing with their kids for 1 hour every single day. But for other people, their legend will be traveling across 14 different continents to collect that treasure. And I think that's the bit that really stands out in the book as well, is that ultimately, depending on what stage in life you're in, you need to figure out who you are and what it is you're fighting for. But I think that the important message there is that there needs to be maybe something that you're working for. You can't just be like still. There has to be something happening. You know, even if you're going Zen and on the road to enlightenment, you're still taking some action on that road to enlightenment. Or if you're pursuing some political dream or whatever it is, right? There has to be some pursuit maybe or something.
Well, even if you're going Zen, I think most people who are doing that are trying to help others.
Yeah.
They still have that personal legend of contribution.
Yep.
Of teaching, of showing people the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, something you brought up there that I thought was interesting is that when you're young, you don't have solid beliefs yet. So when someone tells you something, you adopt their belief very quickly without question. And it's so important to, first of all, be wary of that. Just be very wary of that, yeah. But understand that a huge part of your life early on, I feel, what you said, it's about getting to know who you are. So that when you get to hopefully our age, you can learn to trust yourself a little bit more. And you only trust yourself more once you kind of discover who you are. When you haven't yet discovered who you are, I think not going on that journey is very dangerous, because then anything that anybody says about you, because of your uncertainty of who you are, you immediately question, oh my God, are they right? And I think one of the things for me on this journey has been to slowly become more certain of who I am. And still, there's so many bits of me I don't know who I am. I bet you will look at this video when we're 55 and go, what a bunch of dumbasses.
Yeah, they completely didn't understand the book at all.
No idea what they're talking about. Yeah,
read it.
Like, yeah, my God. But I feel that as I become more certain of who I am, it's the opinions, the thoughts, and the comments from others have less negative impact.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it's through this book has helped me even made that stronger. It's because then when people are focusing all their time on me, for example, and saying, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, this, but I just now think to myself, with the addition of this book and the knowledge from this, that, well, that person's not spending any time on their personal legend.
Yeah.
They're spending too much of their time on other people's personal legend, therefore eroding their ability to find progress in their own path.
There's such a valuable thing that you just spoke of there as well, is that's how I think you can also pick the omens and the advice that you take on board. You know, like that whole concept of, is this person in my corner or aligned with my personal legend? Or have they pursued a similar type?
Yeah.
You know, and have they walked that path? Or are they on a completely different journey and they're just throwing stuff at me that doesn't really align? And I think we all get that feeling a little bit, you know, sometimes where it's like, yeah, it's good advice. Like what you're telling me is great, but it probably just doesn't fit right now. Or
Well, because that person's advice is based on the omens they followed towards their destination for their personal legend. I mean, the dangers, see, this is what this has made me realize, Ali, I think in this moment now, man, is the dangers of following advice of people not on the same path. I mean, imagine someone who's on their way to, I don't know, to Iceland, and then you're trying to get your way. You're trying to go to Utah in America, and then you meet the guy to go to Iceland. You go, hey man, what's the directions towards the most beautiful place in the world? They're going to tell you the directions to Iceland. You're trying to get to Utah, right? So I think it's actually very dangerous, and that's why it kind of goes back to saying you have to go on your journey and discover who you are. And the book says the only way to learn is through action. And I think that's because action is something that is linked to you. Like the word action itself is you have to do it. Yeah. You have to take action, which means you have to learn. You have to discover. You have to explore.
Oh, there's a beautiful action quote in the book again.
Try to find it. Don't be afraid of pausing. Remember, in music.
There you go. The Alchemist said, so there's only one way to learn. The Alchemist answered, it's through action.
Yeah.
You know, everything you need to know, you have learned through your journey. You need to learn only one more thing, you know, and it touches on that point of action, right? And just that, like the concepts of that, and even going back to the advice part, is that we were all looking for so many answers. Like I remember doing this thing just with the business a little while ago where I spoke to 4 different advisors who had all achieved essentially the path that I was looking for. And I was hoping that I'd go speak to them with the one question that I had, and they'll just give me the clear answer of how to tick that off. You know, it was about scaling. And as long and behold, 4 completely different answers to get the exact same endpoint.
Wow.
You know, like, one's like, blah, 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 international expansion. Other is like more verticals. Another one is like partnerships, you know, like strategic partnership. The other's like sell, you know, and it's like, and they're all, it's like 4, they all lead to the end point, you know, of the quest. But then you have to kind of decide, all right, which of those 4 am I most interested in? Because that's the beautiful thing about advice. It can all be right and it can all be wrong.
Well, what you just revealed there was some of us may have similar destinations, but never the same journey.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like what that means is we go through life with the illusion that the person who has the similar destination to us has walked a similar path.
Yeah.
But that's not true. This is where the illusion leads you astray. What you've got to understand here is that there may have been another person who wanted to be a keynote speaker, but I think what we have to accept now is, and this to me, there's no more universal truth than this, and it's that there may be by chance, and I think even this is minimal, that someone has the same goal as you, but every single path there is uniquely different.
Yep.
Every single path.
100%.
Every single path. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love the analogy of you being a keynote speaker and being on stage. Like if you're sharing the stage with someone, you guys are on the same stage.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you the way that you both got there, or the 3 if you got there, is uniquely different.
Yeah.
And the stories in there, but the end result is relatively similar.
What that means is then don't ask too many questions for advice about the path.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think if you ask for the exact advice about the path, well, I'm trying to understand what this lesson means then, right? Because there's still good reason to ask for advice on the path, but it's just don't try to walk their exact path. Don't think in your mind, I'm going to talk to this successful person, find out exactly what they did in their life, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. They have a different set of skills to you. They have a different lens on that can have more sensitivity to different omens along the way. It's different. I think it's more about, I don't know. What would you ask then? I mean, think about it this way. If we now kind of understand that, and again, this may be completely wrong, but if destinations may be similar, but the path is always different, how would you have changed what you asked these 4 different people?
No, I wouldn't have.
How could you? You would not?
No, because it was all valuable. Because the real lesson was the end result of asking the 4 people.
Right.
Yeah, because it pretty much told me it's like, well, there's 2 sides of it, right? Because I got all the knowledge of their 4 different viewpoints that I could then assess and analyze and take the best bits out of each of theirs. So straight away it worked. Whereas the only difference was I was hoping the easy way would have been that I'd have asked these 4 people who had walked a similar path to give me the exact same answer. You know, what they did was they gave me 4 correct answers.
Your desire for pattern recognition.
Right? Yeah. So it was more around, and it showed me 2 really valuable lessons there. And from their advice is that I got 4 frameworks that I could follow or emulate. But it also showed me that on this journey, I can also do it a few different ways. There isn't just one direct linear route to get to that endpoint.
Well, you talked to 4 people. Yeah, well, you talked to 4 people. They showed you 4 different paths. You learned from that and you crafted a 5th. right?
You get the fifth, right? And that's the whole thing about emulation and learning. So if you look at it, you can never follow the path exactly.
You can't, even if you want to.
But you have to add your own flavor to add that new thing. Otherwise, it's not creative. You're not pursuing that. You're just copying someone's thing word for word or exactly, which it can work like basketball analogy. I know you're not big into sports. There's Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. Kobe Bryant based his whole career on Michael Jordan, right? And he ended up getting similar results. He's always in the conversation as one of the greatest of all time. But Kobe Bryant added his own flavor as well. Like he's still got his unique standpoint of how he went about his craft.
Well, copying implies that you learn nothing. You're not learning. You're just imitating. I think the whole thing behind learning is it has to be an action that is internally driven by you. That is, in a way, it's you exploring in a way. No exploration means no new actions, mean no new learnings, right? I mean, if you're copying someone, you already know the outcome they achieved. So if you copy, you get the same outcome. There's no learning that has been accomplished.
Yep.
And I think that learning component is pretty important. And just before we leave that love component, I think I love the idea that no one can hold anyone back really from achieving their personal legend. Because if that is true, it truly does free me from that little sense of guilt that I'm holding other people back, right? And I want to talk to that a bit more. I wonder if you have any more thoughts on that. Because here, okay, sorry, I asked for your thoughts and I'm talking already. But it's like, if you're with someone, those are relationships that don't work.
Yeah.
Because I've been with partners before where I wanted to pursue this career path in the world of magic. They didn't really approve of it, didn't really like it. But that's why we broke up. Because they had, I think the reason why I feel that small sense of guilt, and again, it just may be me trying to take too much credit for how much influence and power I have, but it's, I kind of think to myself that, someone with a strong character will fight for their personal legend. But someone who loves you so much, does it sometimes cloud their mind and they give up their personal legend? Or maybe their personal legend is a part of loving you. It's but then the book says love doesn't interfere with personal legend, that they're two different things, right?
Yeah, I think it's, my component on love is that, and this is something my mum used to tell me, she's like, love can only be given. And there's a concept in that, is that it's internally driven, right? Like so many of us are on this search of wanting to be loved. And we want love to be reciprocated, and we want it to be an equal balance and accounted for. And I don't think it's one of those resources. It's not a currency that operates like that. Like, I think that, like, say if you're sitting there, you could feel all the love in your heart towards your partner, but if they're having like the shittest day of all time and life's just sucking, there's a chance that they won't be able to receive that. But all you can do is give it. And I think it touches on this point, it links back again to personal legend, and again, going back to it being all internally driven, is that I think as individuals, you can only kind of control the way that you go about it and what you put out there in the world and how you design it. Like, if you then know, like, deep down in your heart that I'm deliberately oppressing this person, I'm making moves to make sure that they can't hit their personal legend, then that's on you. Like, if you're like, it's me or you and I'm picking me, then it's a different concept. But if it's something that kind of evolves or takes place and everyone's sort of doing their own thing that's driven internally and in alignment with who they are, they're not pretending to be something that they're not. I think that that's kind of the key to it, with love, and that's why when we look at the love we have for our kids, it's unconditional because of that. Because we know we can go and give all the love we want to our kids, and then they can do whatever the hell they want back to us, but it's not really going to change it. Like, it's that same thing. And then if you find that in other aspects and other relationships, it becomes, to me, a really pure manifestation of that love, because then it's not based on, again, because the guilt's the external manifestation of feeling that you're not taking the actions or being the person you need to be.
Yeah,
which is the other
it's a
person.
good point.
Maybe. I don't know. It's
No,
complex.
I think that's a really good point. It's that it's
I don't know.
well, no, it's me kind of projecting on others, right?
Yeah.
It's that yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's me projecting onto other people. That guilt comes from the projection of what and how others should live.
Yeah, it's just a concept I've been thinking about lots, and maybe I'm more on that, like, not harsher side, but more binary side of it. But I just feel that, like, to be the best person, I just believe this, to be the best person for other people, you need to be the best version of yourself that you can at that time.
Makes the most sense.
Like, well, it's the only way I could do it without it, like, screwing with my head.
Yeah.
And because I know when I've tried doing it the other way, where I've tried to adapt and change, or, you know, like you pretend to play a different role, it's not sustainable. It doesn't seem to work. Like, it seems like it's got more of a superficial impact rather than when you go back to purity or whatever you want to call it. Like if you turned around and you're like, all right, hey, I'm just going to stop being a keynote speaker. I'm going to grow a neck beard for the next 5 years.
Kind of, if I wanted to grow a beard.
You can't do that even if you wanted to. That's why I went there. So you're going to be super sad. You're going to be even sadder than you are right now for giving up everything that you love. Like, my gut feel would be is that Pei Wen would ultimately end up not respecting you for that decision, and your value that you bring to your environment will also diminish quite significantly for making that compromise. That's my thoughts on it.
Well, there's another quote from the book that's relevant, I think. And the quote is, sometimes there's just no way to hold back the river.
That's a good one.
And I love that because
that one, I think that one didn't stick out. That's awesome. Yeah,
well, that one stuck out for me, I think, because I kind of felt that guilt and I wanted to find reasons to not feel that guilt, and the book gave me some of those. And it's that, to me, the river, represents everybody's the strength and the gravitational pull towards their own personal legend that exists. And I think no one has the strength and the ability to stop anyone who wants to pursue their personal legend from pursuing their personal legend.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone has that ability. So be careful with the guilt that we feel. And it's something I've been talking to Pei Wen about. And I think for Pei Wen, I think one of the things that mothers go through that us kind of clunky, primitive men don't really experience is guilt as a mother. Mummy's guilt is what they call it, right? And it's crazy to me how much of that guilt they feel. But what I try to, communicate to my wife especially is that you don't have as much control as you think.
Yeah.
And because you believe you're in complete control of your child's development, who they become as a person, because you're under the illusion you have that complete control, you're causing yourself so much pain. And this passage in the book was such a powerful passage for me to tell her that in this powerful current of life, honey, we are nothing but a branch on the side. You are not the current. You are the branches and the leaves that fall into the current, and the current takes you for the ride. And, yes, it gave her some form of relief, but, for me, I found a really wonderful book for her to read about that. A simple conversation is not going to lift somebody's guilt that they feel for the children. Yeah. But again, to me, that's what I thought of, is that we do not have as much control as we think over the lives of others.
Yeah, well,
it's like the Stoics say, the only two things you can control are your thoughts and your actions, and everything else of that, it's the current, mate. Yeah.
But you look at the mothering game.
Yeah.
It's so in the world today, it's so stacked.
Two guys talking about the mother's game. That's hilarious.
Right? But you look at it, I remember even when we were going through it with our two young ones, and Shannon being a new mum, is that every single blog post, every single nurse, every single parent, every single advice, it's like, oh, you're doing it wrong. Don't do it like that. It needs more tummy time, needs more of this. Breastfeed better. Do that. If you look at that as a space, right? Because it's such a common journey of become a new parent, especially when you're a new parent and a first-time parent. But there is the system, call it, isn't stacked in the favor of the new parent. It's designed to like play on, very similar to probably the beauty game. You know, it's like they make money off telling people how shit they are.
Yeah, not good enough.
And then playing on that doubt. And I think that is the most common thing. Like, I'm yet to meet, even in our friendship group, in our family, meet a mum or even a new dad that has felt adequate. Like, oh yeah, we did it pretty well. when the reality is like, there's only one goal. It's to make sure the kid's healthy and alive.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you break it down into its simplest form, like I remember us having this discussion with our first son, Marcel, where we were worried that he wasn't doing enough tummy time, you know, and like getting pretty stressed out. We're like, oh, well, you can't do that. And I'm like, then I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, have you ever seen a kid that's like 9 years old but still lying flat in their belly that just never really got past that?
Actually, I do know a couple, Ali. It's no, yeah, it's
but you know what I mean? Like we can
that's crazy.
Over like put that. That's pressure, right? That's external pressure. Those feelings, like we get it. You can get it as an entrepreneur. You can get it in your workplace. You can get it as a friend. You can get it in whatever aspect. But it goes back to that point again, is that like you can control your thoughts and your actions, but you spoke some truth in that one, man.
Well, but I think it really stems from, again, that same quote, is that sometimes there's no way to hold back the river. Is that the river, like, let's say it's the current of life.
Yeah.
And to think that you have that much control is going to cause you pain. It's going to cause you pain. And I think whether it's the pain of parenthood, to think you have so much control over how your child develops, I think it's a trap and it's a danger. And for you to think you have so much control as well over how your life is going to pan out, and how your partner's life is going to pan out, how your best friend's life is going to pan out, how your best anything. Like, I think there's a danger in that, is that, well, that's why you and I have been saying for such a long time in our friendship now, that Bruce Lee's quote of being water, right?
Be like water.
That whole idea of being fluid.
Yeah. The really interesting concept there around control versus surrender.
You see, but that's a quote I've got here that I have to read it before I forget to read it. But it's the whole idea of, in a river, like, there are times when you have to be rigid, and then there are times you have to be fluid. And I think it's about learning when to be rigid and when to be fluid. Because I think if you became completely fluid and I'm just going to surrender to everything, Ali. And I think if I surrender to everything, I feel like I'd become a potato.
Yeah.
Right? Like, in terms of like a couch potato, I just kind of, I'm just going to surrender to it all. Yeah. So to me, again, the paradoxes we always talk about, I think it's about being fluid, but at the same time also having the ability to be rigid. And it's identifying times of when am I going to be fluid and when am I going to be rigid.
This is big. There's something big in this. And
there's something here. What is it, Ali?
I don't know. But it's big. But it's big like something. This.
Yeah, but it's like just
the only answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking about this heaps lately around this concept of control and surrender.
And I'm listening. I'm just looking at my notes. Yeah.
No, you look at your notes, but I think you nailed it there with the river analogy. There's times where you have to surrender, and then there's times where you have to be rigid. Like, because you think about what we do, even as entrepreneurs, as parents, as, you know, whatever our space is.
Yeah.
Is like I know the same thing. If you surrender too much, you're going to lose the shape and maybe that alignment. And if you control too much, you're going to miss out on how to probably progress as well. And I don't know where that intersection is, or how you use that in a practical format.
Well, let's connect it to something in reality, right?
Yeah.
If I just be water with food, I'd be 120 kilos within a time span of 6 weeks. I know I can do it. I'm very good at this, right? But to me, I can't be fluid with what I eat. If I'm just completely, oh man, whatever comes my way, whatever goes into my mouth, goes into my mouth, man. It's all good. I can't control it, brother. It's the river, right? So to me, I have to be rigid with myself. I mean, I am fairly fluid with what I eat. I'm not so strict on myself, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm fairly fluid. But then I'm rigid like a monster these days on make sure you get on the exercise bike, you get on the rower, you do some weights, right? And the balance of fluidity and rigidity is what helps me find this wonderful balance. I feel like the more and more we discuss these things, Ali, it's always a seesaw.
Yeah, it always is.
And there are going to be times where you're fluid with food and you gain weight, like me 2 years ago, got up to 93 kilos, right? And then there are times when, because you swung the other way so hard, you swing back the other way and you drop 10 kilos.
Roller coaster.
So to me, it's really about just balancing rigidity and fluidity in every area of our lives.
Yeah.
And the tough thing is, though, is identifying where to be rigid and where to be fluid.
Yeah.
That's the tough thing.
Like when do you just go to the pantry and have a couple of Tim Tams?
Oh, dude, yeah.
And
I mean, regularly, I would hope.
Yeah, I think there's... Yeah, whoever figures out that and how to know when to be fluid and when to be rigid.
Well, again, the Alchemist gave us the answer. Just try.
Yeah.
Take action. Do it. And understand that there is no perfect balance that ever exists. The seesaw of life is consistently balancing and readjusting. There is never a state you reach in life, I believe at this point in my life, where it's like this.
Yeah, no.
And then you go, oh my God, I've done it. But then you know what happens if you ever achieve it? Because I've never been able to achieve it. If you ever achieve this, I promise you, within 3 months of that, this becomes your sheep.
Yeah.
You're like, no, the sheep's come back.
If you're too like this, it's unsustainable. If you're too like this, it's unsustainable. If you're too there, it's too boring.
It's the sheep. No, but I think this can become sheep too. I think that can become sheep too. I think sheep exists at every single degree of balance, right? And what makes life exciting is that, and what makes life, I guess, riveting is that you're consistently having to solve the balance issue. Is this consistent solving of it that keeps you engaged with life? Otherwise, man, if you hit this and you know it's going to be that for the next 80 years of your life, it's like, oh crap, what the hell am I doing here?
I think, and this is where we've spoken about this with this book, why it's so powerful.
Yeah.
Is that I love how it's counted as a fictional book for starters. But that's one of the funniest things to me. And then,
yeah.
And even as someone, like I count myself again, really logical, analytical. But there's so much truth in this book that even though it's living in that esoteric world, it seems super real. Like,
for sure.
Compare it to other fables and parables and religious texts and all of those things. It's like he's written this and just like it's mystical, but it's magical, but it's got like 0 levels of bullshit in it. Is probably what.
It's so distilled. It's so distilled.
Yeah.
Every experience is so distilled that when you read it, every interaction you hear, the dialogue has been distilled to the most pure form of that experience in life, and you relate to your own life. I mean, I'll tell you one right now that I really related to. I mean, the biggest lesson I got from this, Ali, is that I've been the Englishman in my life. And the Englishman is the person, beyond just being obsessed with theory, that's not the part I connect with him. The part that I connect with the Englishman the most is that he has been living his entire life to achieve the goal of turning lead into gold. He lived his life only for the achievement of the dream. He didn't live his dream. He only tried to acquire the dream, not live the dream. And to me, that is such a huge difference in life, is that this whole time I've only been relentlessly pursuing this dream, but I've missed the point. Because I feel like the point of The Alchemist, such a huge point of this book, is the journey.
Yeah.
It's you live your dream. You live on the way to achieving your dream. Whereas I did not have that lens on my journey so far, man. And that's why I feel so tired. And that's why last year I felt so depleted, and then you had to fly from Melbourne to America to spend weeks with me to help me get out of that rut, right? You know, I'll never forget that, Ali. That was so special of you, brother.
No, man.
But like, I think the reason I got into that rut, when I achieved my dream, I was at the peak of my career, but I felt so shit because I forgot to live my dream and only became obsessed in acquiring it.
Ooh.
Like that to me was like, oh man, such a powerful thing that I realized, because Santiago, he lives his dream, the discovery, the journey, the lessons, love and everything. Whereas the Englishman was just, didn't see anything in life that was passing him by. Only got to turn lead into gold, got to turn lead into gold, got to turn lead into gold. And for me, it was wealth creation, wealth creation, wealth creation. Your family knew nothing but poverty.
Yeah.
And I looked up and I went, oh shit, my life's kind of fucked up, you know?
Man.
So that's, yeah, man, that for me that hit me right in the heart.
And just from knowing you over the last sort of, 5 years or so,
yeah,
it's interesting that that's how you view your journey, because I would also view it as you're probably one of the closest people that I know that's actually living this book in terms of pursuing their personal legend as well. So it's that interesting, again, that paradox of how it would have felt internally, but then how I've kind of watched as you've gone through that journey. And I think, like, you know, it might have felt internally that it's so driven by the wealth and like your family upbringing and all of those things. But on the flip side, I also think that you've exhibited so many of the bits and pieces within this book in terms of how you went about it, right? Like you remind me of that old man that is like, I'll show you the secrets, you know, and let's go down that path. And I think it's, you've gone through like the different hurdles, but it just seems like, at what point are you in that quest, right?
Yeah.
Like yours was that realization that I think you knew that you're on the right path, but just needed to probably reshape the way you're walking down it.
You know what it was? It was the being too rigid.
Yeah.
Without fluidity. I was so rigid on achieving this goal that I forgot that life's not a straight line.
Yeah.
Life is crazy, man. Life is beyond crazy in terms of, it's not even a sine wave. It's even more insane than that.
Yeah.
So to me, you know, trying to see how these lessons all connect, I really feel like, you know, don't be so upset. It's like Pei Wen said to me something really beautiful. She said to me, you've worked so hard to build such a beautiful garden, yet you rarely sit here and enjoy the garden you've built.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And also telling me that the garden that you've built for us, you have us sit in here without you. And the garden will never replace you. You know, and it's like, and then, dude, because of coronavirus, I've been forced to sit in the garden that I've created for the last 7-8 weeks, and I love it.
Yeah.
And it's the difference between blindlessly trying to achieve a dream and enjoying the ride on the way to achieving your dream. I finally can say I understand as much as I can at the age of 34 right now that everyone through my life, the phrase, damn it, Vince, slow down and smell the roses, has never made sense to me until this year. But all along the way, I'm like, yeah. I know, I will, don't worry. Look, I'm smelling the roses. I'm smelling. But it was bullshit. It wasn't real.
Yeah.
It wasn't real until I was forced, until the world forced me to stay home and smell the roses. You know, for the first few days, I think I was still faking smelling the roses, you know, like, oh, this is lovely balance. I love this. But inside I was like, no.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Love this garden.
and then, you know, you mourned it because you're like, oh God, smelling the roses is awful. But then at the end, after a while, you go, wow, this is what I've been missing. This is insane.
Yeah.
I haven't been living for such a long time, man. It's the whole concept of, are you living to work or are you working to live, right? It's that balance.
But it's also you know, you talk about the journey, like that's just the next chapter in the journey, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And this is the cool thing that I've seen even over the past 8 weeks is that you're still pursuing your legend, and maybe even on a higher level, right? But you've been able to incorporate all these other bits and pieces, which again ties back to the book.
Yeah.
You know, like you didn't just throw it all away and then go down the path of regret. You kind of said, how do I still take the best parts of all of this, stay in alignment with the legend, but then also make sure that other parts of my legend are also fulfilled, right? Because I think your legend also started shifting, right? More towards being a dad, to be, you know, the family component. And it was also recognizing those things, because that's the other part about the journey. It's really hard to judge it in hindsight because it all had to happen to get you to the point that you're now reflecting from. You can only reflect on a journey like with this level of clarity when you're at the next point that the journey gave you. You know, like say Santiago's story ends with the crystal maker and he goes back and buys his sheep. Like, that's still cool.
I think you got to give context there as well, right? Because when he lost all of his money to the thief before he went on his journey, he was working at the crystal merchant, not to go on the journey to the desert, like I said before, but he originally said, stuff it, I'll just get this job, make enough money, go buy my sheep back again, and then just become a shepherd again and just go back to the way things were. Yeah. No, I was filling in the blanks there just in case one day our kids do listen to this and they're like, wait, what are they talking about? Again, because I presume that moving into the future, I just feel like with the young kids I see now, they're just not reading anymore.
So trying to get these two morons talking about.
Yeah. So, you're always straight to the point. I'm trying to give the context
for the last 2 hours.
Oh gosh. No, but I'm just trying to give more context. But anyway, so you were saying about the merchant.
Yeah, but like that's a really interesting concept as well, in terms of if you go by being like water and fluidity as a concept, like the story's still cool if he goes to the crystal merchant, gets the money, travels all that way, and then goes back and buys his sheep. You know, because you wouldn't know what else is left on beyond the other side of it. So it's still a cool story.
Unknown unknowns. Yeah.
There's a bit in there that also really sticks out to me in terms of that concept of how much we're striving. You know, like in this, there's the glorified aspect of obviously him going on the quest for the treasure. And we all relate to that because internally we all have this drive. You know, we love it in every single movie, the person going against the odds. But
one level. Yeah.
Right, it's still levels, right? It's still a pretty cool story. Getting robbed in Africa after traveling when you were meant to be a priest. You go and somehow transform this crystal merchant's shop into something amazing, and then you go back and buy your sheep. Still works pretty well.
Well, and I think also no one knows your story. And then the fact that even if you did go back and buy those sheep, that's not the end of that story. That story continues. Yeah. I think the inspirational part about that is that no matter where your story is right now, it's not the end of the story.
Nah.
You can start a new chapter next week.
Now.
Yeah, you can start it now. And I think, and then this is what I say often. I've made a few videos about this. Is in that I think I hope people realize that, you know, the author wrote this story. And he held the pen, and you are the author of your story, and you hold the pen. But I think there are times in life, Ali, where we give our pens to maybe our partners out of love, thinking that if I love this person, I'll give them my pen so they can write my story. No, that's not love. I think what we've learned from this book is that love is the other person writing their story and supporting you in writing your story as you support them in writing their story. You know, and I think don't forget that you are the author of your own story and that you're the one holding the pen. And if you've given your pen away, just grab it back and write your own story.
Do you know what's interesting with this? I'm not sure if you know the backstory, but when he wrote the book, no one read it for 20 years.
He had a really rough upbringing too, right?
He could not find anyone to read it. So it's interesting, this story nearly represents his whole life as well, because I think now it's sold 150 million copies or something.
Wow.
but it sat there dormant for ages. You know, like really similar to the lessons that he was writing about.
Yeah.
And then I don't know exactly how it sort of caught fire, but then obviously the rest is history, and it became such an iconic book. But that's a really interesting concept as well. The book talks about the language of the world.
Yeah.
And this is the one that's always, I remember the first time I read it, that sort of blew my mind, because this is like the first type of book like this that I read all those years ago. And I remember just being like, holy crap. Yeah, I know what, I've seen an Omen before. But the language of the world and that whole concept, what are your thoughts on that?
Above my pay grade. I read that with like, what the hell? What does that even mean? I truly felt like, wow, I'm so stupid. Why don't I understand this? And I remember reading it back and forth, and because I think I'm someone who has.
We're both equally stupid.
But I think I'm someone who, you know, again, willing to be vulnerable and also transparent, is that I haven't dived down the spiritual path much in my life.
Mm.
Now, even though my parents have and some of my friends have, I've never really spent time. I've lived in the very kind of pragmatic world of entrepreneurship and, you know, 1 + 1 = 2. I never really dived into the world of spirituality, which I think this is why when I read this, the language of the world, my absolutely bare minimum thought of it is that there's essentially there's a force beyond what we understand as human beings.
Mm.
And that as human beings, this force, again, I related it to the current of life, is that the moment we're born, we're thrown into this current, and we basically have to learn to swim along the way. And along swimming in this current, we have to learn the language of the current. We have to learn the way this current works and learn how to maneuver through it. And whether the current is being controlled by a higher being or whatnot, the language of the world to me represented the skills we need in order to navigate through the current of life. That's how I kind of viewed it, is that that's the only definition I had in my own mind. What do you think?
Yeah, man. I 100% agree. It's like completely above because I think this is now getting into the realm of what is the meaning of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. No one else has figured it out yet, so I don't know whether we'll be able to.
That's all right. That's all right. No one has.
We'll give it our best shot. But
give it a crack, mate. You never know. You might solve something that people have been trying to solve in the next 10 seconds.
Well, I think it's everyone's interpretation, right? Like, I think you nailed it there in terms of the current. To me, that analogy really fits. And the higher force and the higher power kind of thing is something that I reckon is really interesting as well. You know, going like, say for example, like where does the thought come from? Where does a dream come from? Like, you can't consciously sit there and be like, all right, I'm thinking this thing and I premeditate it. It comes from some place. Call it the ether.
Some people call it the ether. I mean, the ether concept, this is like getting really interesting now, because people say, again, it's like the thoughts, ideas exist in this ether, like, and then the description that I was kind of fed in the book was, it's like radio waves.
Yeah.
It's just these thoughts are flying around in the air, and if you are tapped into the right channel, you'll receive it.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's a really fascinating concept.
Like, what are we doing right now?
Yeah.
Like, where is that? Where are these ideas coming from? Like, are they conscious? Are they subconscious? Like, and what factors took place for us to then be sitting here doing this right now? Because it's not premeditated, right? You can't plan that out. It's not like 5 years ago, I mapped out this plan where on whatever the date is today, May 31st,
no way.
Vinh and I would be talking about The Alchemist. You know, like, whatever that is. Like, that concept of the language of the the world or the soul of the world, however it refers it to. That blows my mind on so many different levels because it taps into like destiny or faith or action and fear and failure and journey. And it nearly like kind of wraps it up. Then it's like, all right, well, all these things are real. You can control parts. You have to play a role and some things will happen to you. But at the end of the day, like the whole concept of where are we standing on a planet that's like revolving at a crazy velocity in a solar system that's revolving at a crazy velocity in a universe that's part of a multiverse, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah,
and then you get into that concept.
Well,
and then it's like,
but can you see, in describing this, the reason in my mind I feel immediate overwhelm is because, again, this is why I think mind mapping is really important.
Yeah.
When we go so granular and you're talking about being in the world, revolving around the sun, in the universe, in this lattice, in this freaking, and you just keep going in this galaxy, right? I think if you mind map, and this is one of the skills now we really want to learn right now, is by mind mapping it, we can see the hierarchy of it. And when we have these discussions, the more granular you go, the more overwhelmed you feel. It's like if I went to you as a CEO of your company, and I said, currently right now, Ali, I'm doing a marketing campaign, and I gave you all the granular information. You can't make great decisions. You can't give me insight. So I think what will make these discussions powerful, and it's why I'm trying to urge you in that direction too, is that I think if we create mind maps for this, we can have way more constructive conversations because we're able to see the entire thing.
Yeah.
Whereas when you don't see the entire thing, because while I'm doing this as well, I can't help but critique it myself. in that I feel the effectiveness of these conversations for us, for our own personal benefit, will come from having a hierarchy for it.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So we can zoom in essence, zoom back out, and then talk about it again. Whereas what I'm experiencing with this experience, Ali, is that we zoom in and we just can't zoom out now. Do you know what I mean? And then there'll be times when we zoom out, but I think the consciousness, the ability to be able to zoom in, zoom out, I think is really important in us growing with this experience as well.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. Any other lessons you have? Would maybe do one more each or maybe one more quote each. I can't believe. Hey, has this kind of flown for you? This has flown for me.
Yeah, man. 100%. It's been amazing.
Okay. So one of the things that, I've been trying to think about more is, and the reason I really wanted to do this, brother, with you is I want to find things to do where time melts.
Yeah. I don't even know how long we've been going for.
It's just 2 hours now.
Crazy.
Doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's been 20 minutes, 30 minutes for me. See, but I'm pursuing time melting activities.
Yeah.
And
this is time melting.
And I want this to stay time melting. That's why, like I said to you before, I want to be really conscious of not trying to, monetize this from every single angle. So to me, this is powerful. Just wanted to share my thoughts. I think this is really cool. It's time melting.
Well, to me, the thing that's just stood out is it's added so much more learning. Like, I will never now forget any aspect of this book.
Because we cemented it.
I've read it 5-10 times.
Yeah.
This is now completely locked away because all of our stories that we've also added to it and the way that you've analyzed it and added your sort of thoughts on it. Like, literally, when I read this the next time, there will be 4 or 5 extra dimensions of meaning to the book. It's now like embedded. It's probably the first book or second book that I could say that I've truly studied.
And, I can't keep going back to this. And I think it's just, I have this irrational fear of dying. But imagine one day our kids read The Alchemist.
Yeah.
How cool will it be for them to listen to their parents talk about a book they've just read? And they're sitting there, they'll be like, I thought the same thing. Or, wow, my dad's a dumbass because the answer to life is just this. Yeah. It's like, again, I just think that I can't help but think how exciting it is for them. They'll probably think it's boring.
It's so cool to see both of our different perspectives on how we interpret it. That's the coolest part about this.
That is really cool. And then to think that how many other different interpretations there are in the world.
Yeah. And like when people watch this, I guarantee you they'll be adding their own comments to it.
And you know what my biggest hope is, and again, it's I promise this is not me trying to monetize it.
Yeah.
But it's like, wouldn't it be amazing to be doing something like this that promotes learning?
Yeah, for sure.
Learning in young people, learning in older people. Wouldn't it be amazing to be the spark that gets people to then go, you know what? Stuff it. I'm going to go buy the book.
Oh.
And then they buy the book, they read it. They have all these crazy realizations of their own. And as a result, the ripple effects happens in their life, in their family, in their community, in their state, in their country, in the world, right? That's why there's a huge factor of that makes it super exciting for me, is that can we gradually become good enough to be a spark that ignites the world, right? That would be the coolest thing ever. Yeah.
Man, I think I'm hoping there's stuff in here that inspires, like, especially like I'm thinking about our kids. I hope it does inspire our kids to read the book. Like, that would be the goal.
To me, if that's all that we do, we've won.
That's like, how cool would this be in like 15 years time? To send
this is liquid gold. I think you and I have to create a joint Dropbox or something and then host it and continue to pay for the rest of our lives so we never lose this stuff.
Yeah, it gets sent. Like, for them to get their cash, they have to watch all of our videos.
Yeah. Oh! And there's a quiz. There's like this brilliant quiz that if you don't answer this correctly, no money for you.
That's right. You get a percentage based on how you answer as well.
This is brilliant. Dude, we have just cracked how to transfer wealth to the next generation.
Yeah. We've just us enforcing our personal legend onto our children.
Yeah. So welcome to challenge 433. Only 4,000 more to go. Okay, so is there another line that you have that really stood out for you? I've got one here.
Did you say this one before? When a person really desires something, all the universe conspires to help that person realize his dream?
No, I haven't. So say that again.
Yeah, so this one is a quote that really stands out for me, and it says, when a person really desires something, all the universe conspires to help that person to realize his dream. And that one stands out a lot, because I think it represents people that are in the pursuit of something. There's a good chance that the world is in their favor and wants them to get to that point. But I think a lot of the time, we're the people that hold ourselves back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that message really, really stands out, because as the book shows, he goes on his journey. He has the challenges. He could have given up. But the omens and the signposts at every single point were kind of still pointing him in that direction. And it's just something I really relate to in terms of like vision and the internal compass, the GPS, whatever you want to call it. I feel that really strongly. And that quote sticks out, that when I found something to pursue and unlock that next layer, it changed a lot for me in my life. And I think that line relates to that. I don't know. What are your thoughts on
it? It feels like can you read that quote to me again?
Yeah. It is... When a person really desires something, all the universe conspires to help that person to realize his dream.
Yeah, I do remember this. And see, my immediate reaction to it is, when you follow what it is that you want to do, again, relating to the internal actions, it has a gravitational external impact. Right? Is that when we always try to impact the external world with external actions. And I think what that quote reveals to us, and this book reveals to us time and time again, is that the only way to impact the external world is through internal correction or internal improvement. or internal, like following your internal desires. So it's like, I think we have it the wrong way around in that we always think, oh, you know, I want my business to be better. Damn it, why can't my employees be better? Why can't they be better? Why can't they be better? I think we always think the most impactful way to have influence is external actions. But that quote reveals that the world will fall at your feet if you pursue what you love, meaning it's almost like you will have the ultimate influence over the world, or the world will come to help you the moment you realize it starts with you.
Yeah.
You stop waiting for, and I think it relates again to stop waiting for people to come save you or come help you or come be your hero. And it's that you're your own hero and the world will amplify that epicness of you.
Got this question for you, right?
Yeah.
When you were going on your journey of becoming a speaker,
yeah,
did you have any moments that kind of felt like that? Where it's like you've done all the work, you've planned, you've prepped, but just that unexplainable thing kind of happens where it's just like, all right, there's that thing that I needed that just happened that took me to the next level.
How I met my manager.
Yeah.
So what I did was I always have the philosophy of Steve Martin is his quote is one of my North Stars, not him as the person, but just one of his quotes. And it's the whole concept of be so good they can't ignore you. So while I was in Adelaide building my keynote speaking career, I just worked on getting better and better and better and better. Forget everything else. Just try to get better and better and better and better and better. And then I felt like I was good enough. And then I sent out 20 plus emails to bureaus all around the US. No one replied. If any replied, it was a generic email of, hey, we're not looking for speakers right now, but when we are, we'll let you know. And this one person named Karen Harris replied. And she was like, hey, I watched your TEDx video. You spoke a little bit fast, but you've got something. You've got something. And I want to see you in action live. So again, she didn't answer all my problems because I'm like, how the hell am I going to get an opportunity to speak in the US when I've never spoken there? But she was an omen. She showed me a direction. And I went, okay, everything I have to do, I don't care what I have to do. I have to get an event in Los Angeles or somewhere in America to speak so she can fly to see it because she won't fly to Australia. Gradually got an event. I emailed again so many events to speak for free. One event accepted me. She flew there, watched me speak. My keynote career in America there begun. So I could not explain that. You know, but again, it wasn't the world just coming to me. It was me being the best I could. It was me improving me as much as I could. And then the world responded. You know, because if I never sent that email, Karen would have never seen it.
No. You had to still send the email.
I had to still send the email.
Was she the only person that replied, right? Like, that's the bit. It's like, say, that mixture of both.
The universe is the one person that the universe sent, right? Yeah. But it's... But again, I hope that, and I really hope our kids get this, and it's that it's the whole idea of to impact this world, you must focus within.
Yeah. You've got to do stuff.
Stuff to happen. You know, it's weird. It's almost like I cannot find a way to communicate the clarity of which the depth of my understanding in this moment. It's so hard to just, I want to get it out, but I can't. It's so frustrating.
This is interesting. In every story that I've read, every biography, you hear of that master that's taken so many actions, kind of like what you did. And you really, I love the bit how you like, all I could control was just me becoming the best I could at my craft.
That's it.
So that when you had that opportunity, and I think, Kevin Hart was speaking about this the other day. He's like, he'd done all the work to be a comedian, to get up to that level. But then it was this one event that he speaks about, like I think Shaq's All-Star event, that he wasn't even that
keen to do. You know? Yeah. But he thought it was going to do nothing for him. Yeah.
And it just went there. Like Michael Jordan he has this shot in 1984 when he's playing college basketball to win the championship game, makes the shot. But it's because he'd taken 100,000 millions of shots, you know, prior to that moment. But he hits that shot and then he's like, I believe now that I can do this. You know, like that to me is that concept is so magical. And I think it's one of the coolest aspects of life when you hear those stories of people that are like, well, I did everything I could, put myself out there, gave it a crack. But then I still needed that little bit of luck, that little bit that I couldn't really plan for or explain. And that's where it rocket shipped off to the next level. It's really, really cool concept. And maybe a lot of us, we don't do enough of the work, but we want to rocket ship.
Yeah.
Might be something in that.
Well, I think also because in the world we live in today, we no longer really value mastery. I think we live in a world now where good enough is good enough, where we forget mastery has its own league. And I think if anything, it's just reminding people that mastery will never lose its value. It won't. I think it's the ultimate form of value is when you master something. It's very powerful. Yeah. But I think what you just said connects with this last one that I want to say, right? And it's a bit long. It's like 2-3 sentences, but it's before a dream is realized, the soul of the world tests everything that was learned along the way. It does this not because it is evil, but so that we can, in addition to realizing our own dreams, master the lessons we've learned as we've moved towards that dream. That's the point at which most people give up. It's the point at which, as we say in the desert, one dies of thirst just when he sees the palm trees that have appeared on the horizon. Right? So there's so many elements to that quote. I mean, the first one, it says, before a dream is realized, the soul of the world tests everything that we've learned along the way. Like it tests us, right? And it's funny, before you and I got onto the Zoom call, to do the Zoom call we've been looking forward to for the last week and a half, your Zoom didn't work. And for 15 minutes, we were like, what the hell? Zoom works all the time, and it just didn't work for us, right?
Didn't want this to happen.
Yeah. And tell me, right, while that happened, how much did that dampen how you felt? Like the frustration, like oh man, what?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, right?
Well, imagine if we didn't know each other.
Yeah.
And we had an hour time slot.
Would have rescheduled.
25 minutes trying to get Zoom to work.
Yeah. Well, I probably would have read that as, you should have checked this before. You didn't respect me. I'm out of here. Yeah. Well, I still felt that with you anyway, Ali, but anyway. Yeah. I was like, this bastard. Oh my God. But I think what that tells us is that if that is the way of life, is that, like, let's just say the soul of the world is a thing, whatever it may be, we're not able to define it right now, but it's, before a dream is realized, it's going to test you. Mm-hmm. So if you just take that as being, okay, that is what happens in life, then it changes the way you view these obstacles.
Yeah.
Is that these obstacles, they're there because this is what happens. It's not, why is it happening to me? Oh my God, why is this? Why? We go, no, this is here for me. This is here so that I learn, so that I grow, so that this is what makes the journey beautiful. Because imagine it was like, I want to get paid 30 grand as a keynote speaker. Oh, I've done it. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, well, I want to be now a really amazing podcaster like Joe. Oh, what the? Ali, we've done it. It took 4 seconds. Wow, this is amazing. Woohoo. I want to be I'm already a good dad. I'm already an amazing dad. Oh shit. I think there's a huge danger in that.
Yeah.
Because when that happens, Ali, you won't want to live. I actually believe that.
Yeah.
I think if I could snap my fingers and it's why people who win the lottery fall into deep depression, is because I want a Ferrari, I'll just buy it. I want a mansion, I'll just buy it. Oh, whatever I want, I can just buy. Then the excitement of life has diminished.
Mm.
I don't know. I think obstacles are, as bitter as sometimes they feel, it's what makes life wonderful.
I love the bit that you touched on there, that before you taste that fruit, it's inevitable that you're going to have to face that challenge.
Yeah.
I think that's such a valuable concept that, I didn't even think about it like that you've just tapped into there, is that we over-dramatize the challenge.
Yeah.
And then we end up bailing when it's obviously inevitable. Like, if you look at that as such a fundamental lesson out of this book, it's like we should have just known that the Zoom wasn't going to work. We were trying something new. There's no way we were just going to happen. Just start.
You know what's going to happen? No, what's going to happen now is we didn't press record.
For the first time ever, both computers will shut down and delete the recording. So we'll have to go. But that's cool, because we'll just know that that's part of it. If we really believe that we have to do this thing, then it's just inevitable that has to happen. And I think that is so cool, especially for young kids.
It's the deep understanding that it's normal that challenges come your way. It's normal that things will be hard. It's normal that you're going to face failure. This is normal. And I think that first part of the sentence normalizes struggle. And I think the normalization of struggle and failure is so important in the world that we live in today, because of social media, we see overnight successes because people, it's their highlight reel of their life. So to me, the importance of the normalization of failure, suffering, and challenging obstacles that come along in life is incredibly important. So that sentence did that for me, that first sentence, right? Which leads us to the second sentence, where it says, that's the point at which most people give up. So people give up because they don't realize that these challenges and the suffering is normal. And when you don't realize it's normal, you give up. And you give up just before you reach your destination. And I think there's a famous entrepreneurial cartoon that I had on my office back in Australia. And it's of two people digging for diamonds. And on the top column is one person digging for their diamond, and they're digging like crazy, and the diamond's so far away. And on the bottom is the person who's just 1 centimeter of dirt left to dig before they get their diamond, but you see them walking the other way, having given up. And to me, that represents a journey that I have experienced. We start things with such passion, but we don't continue the passion and enthusiasm because our expectation of this journey is that it is straight, it is linear, and we go straight from wanting it to having it. Whereas when we now can fully understand, and this book puts it so beautifully, and you understand that, no, this is normal. This is a part of the way. This is the way, then there'll be less people who die of thirst just before they reach the oasis.
It's pretty. I love that analogy of the guy digging. I think there's a story like similar to that in the book as well, where he talks about some miner. I can't remember it exactly, and that one person might be so far away because they're at the start of their journey, and then you're just you're one hammer away from unlocking it. Like, even with the speaking career, right? Like, think about when you're at a showcase or you're going down that path. It's a different ball game for you versus that person who's there for their first showcase. Like you've already cracked it. They're still digging at the start. Then it's like, all right, and I think that'll be interesting. It's like when you're watching people come up through the ranks. I think it's a really cool thing about growth and development is when you see that and you're like, I wonder whether that person will go all the way.
Yeah.
And we see entrepreneurship space all the time, right? Like, look at Facebook. How many Facebook pages are set up with a domain name and nothing? And there's that little percentage that sort of go out and then they pursue it.
I just saw that while looking up podcast names that I wanted to create and buying domains, and I realized there's so many domains that have one podcast. There are so many, and which was 5 years ago. And to me, the reason why there's these web pages with just one podcast or 3 they've given up is because they don't realize that, well, to them, the obstacles are no longer bring them any joy. And they're like, this is an insane thing to say that obstacles bring us joy. But I think the more we read, the more we learn, the more we build our minds and our brains, the more we start to change the way we view obstacles and lessons that come to us in life. And I think the sooner you change that, the sooner you can remain enthusiastic throughout the journey. Otherwise, everyone starts the same. Everyone starts enthusiastic. But those that maintain enthusiastic they maintain that enthusiasm, they're the ones that have made that mental switch in their head that, oh, challenges are the way, obstacles are the way. They get that. They go, oh, okay, makes sense. And then you actually enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
As opposed to, because here's the reality, Ali, I've met many speakers who've made it as speakers, but are completely miserable.
Yeah.
Because they've suffered the entire journey, right? And part of that is my journey, is that you've suffered all the way through it, because every challenge was like, oh, damn it. Like you get so upset, so angry that you take all the joy out of it. And once you find the diamonds, you're not enjoying them.
Yeah. Ooh.
The diamonds isn't the thing. It's the digging you got to start to really fall in love with, right?
Yeah, well, that's such a powerful point.
Because
I think on that one,
yeah.
Look, I can't remember where I was reading it or where I heard it, but they're like, to find out what you're truly passionate about is that. It's like, what's the thing that you're willing to keep doing even when it's shit?
Yeah.
And that you do cop those challenges. Because that might, for people out there that are maybe thinking, well, how do I go find my personal legend on my journey? And I think the answer probably lies is that the thing that you're pursuing, where without even knowing it, you're just willing to keep rocking up and to cop the challenges and the failures, but you still go there every single day, and you've done that for a longer period of time than you have done other things. It's probably likely that that's also the thing that you're amazing at, or that your unique strength is, or whatever it is. It might be aligned to the personal legend as well.
But before they can even take the cops and take the hits, they have to reframe and understand that the challenges is a part of the journey, that they have to normalize failure and normalize setbacks and normalize all of these negative things that you endure along the way. I think the sooner you reframe that, the longer on the journey you can last.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Without getting bitter and hating it, I think that's a really important thing. And to sum this up nicely, man, it's part of the reason why I want to do this, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are too, but the part of the reason why I want to do this is I really do want to see less people dying of thirst as they see the palm trees on the horizon. I think knowledge is what helps us open up our minds so that we can begin to change behaviors, right? Knowledge is that first step. And then people know, and something that I always say is that knowledge will only bring you satisfaction, in that you learn something, you'll be like, wow, that's so satisfying. Oh, I know it now. But it's the application of knowledge that brings fulfillment.
Yep. Yeah.
And what I'm hoping is that this knowledge will satisfy you, but also inspire you to now go and grab the book.
Yeah.
Actually read it and follow Santiago on his journey through achieving his personal legend, and find where it connects with you and your life, so that you can reflect and learn from the wisdom of this author and apply it to your life, so that you can hasten yourself on your journey to your personal legend, right?
Love it. I think that, I think you've summed it up beautifully there, dude. Like for me, it's that. And I think it's like the thing that I'm really excited about this is hopefully not only does it also inspire people to pick up the book and to get the knowledge and to understand some of the lessons that we may have found through it. But I think the big one here is that can they turn that knowledge into action of some sort? Like if I'm picturing our kids reading this, the ideal end result would be is that not only do they go and read the book, but then at the end of it, they have one dot point, which is like literally one action that I'm going to take from doing this.
Yeah.
And I think that would be cool. Like from when we do these things, if that's how we sort of wrap it up with that inspiration that, all right, this is the thing that we've tried to distill.
Yeah.
But is there one thing that it's driven you now after listening to it that says, all right, I'm actually going to now actually do something with it? And it might even just be as simple as getting the book is step one. But for others, it might be, all right, I'm going to change that life. I'm going to change that relationship. I'm going to start that project, whatever it is. That would be pretty cool.
Great way to sum up the first episode ever that we've done.
Man, that was fun.